So, now that two Gupta brothers, that's Atul and Rajesh Gupta, have been arrested, the big question here at home is, when can they be extradited to South Africa to finally face the music? The arrest took place in Dubai, with the Department of Justice confirming that discussions between law enforcement officials of both countries are currently underway. The Guptas have featured heavily at the state capture inquiry, being accused of masterminding the looting of most state-owned institutions. Let's focus now on what the arrest means for those who are implicated in the Zondo report, and bring in Lawson Naidoo, who's with the Executive Director at Casac. He's with us via our video link this morning. Lawson, it's great to see you. Thanks as always for making time for the AM report. I mean, you know, the reality is, as much is being said, we are at the stage of just arrests taking place, and several steps still need to be taken before the Gupta brothers are brought here at home. Is it time to celebrate just yet?
Good morning, and thank you very much. Look, I think we must acknowledge that this is a very important step in the process of holding members of the Gupta family to account. The arrest that were effected in the United Arab Emirates last week was a result of Interpol notices that had been issued at the request of South Africa. What now must happen is for a formal extradition application to be brought, and that is a matter that would be directly between South Africa and the UAE to determine the terms of that extradition and so on. So, you know, there's a long way to go yet, I think, before we see the Gupta brothers in South Africa facing any charges. But this is a step that I think must be welcomed. And I think coming as it does on the back of the recent arrests of senior figures who were involved with Transnet as a result of the investigations at the Zondo Commission, as well as the work of the Independent Directorate in the NPA, that we are now beginning to see some action being taken against some of the key figures in state capture.
Yeah, in fact, concerns in some quarters that it could take years before the Gupta brothers appear physically, at least, in any South African court. The question, I guess, becomes, do we have the luxury of that time, given what's at stake?
Well, you know, I think, as we all know, legal processes take their time domestically, but also internationally when there are requests for mutual legal assistance, when there are requests for extradition, such as in this case, and we know that there is now an extradition treaty in place between South Africa and the UAE. So we need to make sure that that extradition agreement is put to the test, and that we are able to fast-track this as best as we can. But these things do take time, and I think we must acknowledge that and show appreciation for the work that is being done in moving the process forward. The fact that there are arrests happening in South Africa, the fact that people are now beginning to appear in court, the fact that looted funds are being recovered by the SIU as well as by the Asset Forfeiture Unit are all welcome signs.
Yeah. I wonder how much you know of the actual process itself, Lawson, because my understanding is that the arrest itself after the red notice that was issued by Interpol is a provisional one until we're able to sort out the logistics around this extradition that can take place. Do you know if there's any kind of, I don't know, time limit, for instance, that the South African government would have to adhere to before the Guptas have to be released because they've been arrested for too long?
I'm not aware of the specifics of that, I'm afraid. But I think what we have been assured already from the Department of Justice is that the authorities in South Africa will do all that they need to do in order to secure the extradition of the Gupta brothers to South Africa, as well as other fugitives from justice, including the wives of the two Gupta brothers that were arrested and others. So, you know, this is an ongoing process, and I think we need to show support to the NPA, the Department of Justice, as they pursue these matters, and hopefully bring Ajay and his brother back to South Africa as soon as is practically possible. We know that the Nulani Investments trial relating to money laundering and fraud gets underway in September this year. So that is, in effect, a target date. But, it's not at the end of the world if they're not here by then.
Yeah. You know, there were also concerns about it being the end of the world, potentially, if the Guptas are not featured in any way in the Zondo inquiry. We know that commission has now come and gone, and their voices, as it were, is missing from that. The timing of this arrest, for some, comes a little too late because of that. Do you feel there's much lost that they haven't been featured at the Zondo inquiry?
Well, I think the loss of anything is theirs because, I think the Chief Justice has been able to see a picture very clearly from the other testimony that he's heard of the role that the Gupta family have played in state capture and corruption, the way they manipulated the former president and other senior figures within the political hierarchy as well as particular state enterprises to loot public resources. So I think a very clear picture has emerged of the role of the Gupta brothers, and I think we'll see that in the final report that is due from the Chief Justice in the next week or so.
Yeah. The allegations, of course, against the Gupta brothers are widespread. I mean, they are, in some instances, called the architects of state capture, which we now know ran its tentacles across multiple, if not all, SOEs in this country. How important is it for the NPA to be able to present the right charges against these guys so that the charges themselves stick in a context where, again, there are just so many avenues to take in order to see through some kind of prosecution?
Yeah, no, I think, the NPA, the Hawks, and the Investigating Directorate are well aware of the responsibility that lies on their shoulders to investigate these matters properly, to make use of the reports that have emanated from the Zondo Commission of Inquiry to ensure that they put together a case that has the best chances of prospects in a criminal court. So they're very wary of that, and I'm sure that they will be that will feature heavily on their minds as they bring these charges. But we need to make sure that these charges are brought, that they are put to the test, and we also know that the various suspects or incriminated people are really going to lawyer up, and they're going to fight tooth and nail, and we've seen this strategy play out. Some have called it the Stalingrad strategy, and we've seen that strategy play out, and I think we should expect more of that from some of these linchpins of the state capture project.
Yeah, speaking about all the characters that are involved, it shouldn't be lost to us that it's just two of the brothers that have been arrested. As far as you're concerned, is it a foregone conclusion that more arrests are imminent?
Well, I think, as these process of discussions between South Africa and the UAE proceed, hopefully more information will be shared, which will enable the UAE to effect other arrests, assuming other members of the family are also in the United Arab Emirates. But if not, then to issue, further Interpol notices to secure their arrests.
Lawson Naidoo, thank you so much for weighing in. Appreciate your insights as always. Lawson is the director at Casac.